So I'm gonna start recording. So everything is recording at the moment. So everybody seeing this? Yep, I can see it every time. Yes, seems like everything okay. So, okay, so can you see this amazing work that I'm doing here?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, please say no because there's not amazing work. So, so we're gonna go here and just gonna initialize. Okay. So, I think I already, like I say, I already recorded this. We're gonna go through this because you can see this is the software. This is gonna be your best friend or your best enemy, one of those two. So whatever that means. So you have to. This is the software that we're gonna be using for this semester, and then for those. And the thing is, you're gonna keep using it for the rest of the years coming along. Now, if you compare, for example, again out of the screen, if you compare this with Maya, look, Maya looks nice and clean and all that, and it's got a different way of working. You know? So here you can just, if you want to create something, you just click on this, and you have this nice, and you can just right click and then move stuff around, and then do nice things. Very easy. You know, it's straightforward. You just go some tool sets, and the tool sets you go through them here, and then you can just go and start adding, dividing, doing stuff, poly extruding, merging things together, all that. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay. Now, and the UI, you can see you go some nice menus, and it sort of follows like one of these sort of flat design sort of philosophies in this state that you find in these systems. Now, obviously, you go back to ZBrush and you just see this, and it's a big slap in the face because obviously it's completely different. Okay, so you see the UI looks like I think the UI is horrible. I don't know what you think, guys, but I think it's horrible. I don't know if they've been working on it, and I think they are quite proud of the product they have, which they should because it's amazing. But they say, you know what? I don't care. If you don't like it, then don't buy it. And then go and buy the competition. And then when people go to the competition, say, well, the competition is shit actually. So no, I'm gonna stick to ZBrush. So the software, I mean, this UI, sort of UI, is being there since the beginning. So you can see that's quite outdated in a way, but the software is very powerful. So um, this software here is going to be used for you guys to produce your asset, in terms of even though when you're developing a character or an asset for games, the starting point would be this most likely, okay? Because if you wanted to do something organic in ZBrush, in Maya, they used to do it, but it was such a laborious task to do something like that. Now with ZBrush, because everything is so organic and so fluid, then you can pretty much jump on this straight away and you can start producing something really nice very quickly. Okay? And the tool set has gone so advanced in terms of new tools and new modules, and I'm going to show you a little bit of those in a minute. That the actual turnaround of work has gone so good that the majority now of concept artists, they just jump into this and start sketching things out very quickly. In fact, you can actually use the software to sketch things in 2D like you would in Photoshop. There is a possibility to do that. It's just that it's a different way of working. Now, this software, normally what you do is you come here, you create a sketch, okay, or a 3D sketch, you produce something, you start working with the tools, produce something that you like, show it to another director, show it to whoever you want. But you can see all this stuff here is done using ZBrush. So you will show it to that person, and that person say, well, yeah, I like it, I don't like it, change this and that. So that stuff there is the iteration time has gone so short now that a good, well-seasoned concept artist now is jumping into this software straight away from the beginning because it's so good, it's so easy to work. Now, don't get me wrong, still Photoshop and all those tools, they are heavily used, obviously, of course, yeah. But it's just that you see, you can create sort of type of illustrations now, and then you can just jump in there and then just do things in 3D. Now, the good thing about this methodology is that if you jump onto ZBrush and start working from scratch in here, you will get the perspective for free, pretty much, And or those because I'm not a concept artist, so I cannot talk about that. No, I cannot say, yeah, I used to do it this way because I'm not a concept artist. But I think one of the, probably Holly will agree with it. One of the more challenges issues here is just the perspective, because you need to make sure that things look like actually they have depth and all that. So with this, because everything happens to be in 3D, you get the perspective for free in a way. Obviously, if you get it wrong, obviously you put things in the wrong place. But the majority is that you get a perspective for free, because the viewport sort of mimics a camera, and you can actually in the viewport change the focal length, just like a camera, like a phone, whatever, and you can get different distortion, barrel distortion in the lens. So it does mimic some sort of ideal lens camera. So you can get all that in there without having to worry that, oh my god, the arm's too far apart, the arm's too short. In terms of perspective, in terms of proportion, something else. But in terms of perspective, you get all that for free automatically, because you're working in a 3D environment. Okay. Now, like I said at the beginning, but look at this. It's an amazing piece of work. You can actually do everything. You can do hair. You can do all those things, texture materials. This that mimic skin, all that. So you can do all those elements in there. Obviously, is not as used as another softwares that they are actually designed to. For example, you cannot animate inside ZBrush, because the animation tool, I think, is very limited. It's mostly to do with showcasing your work and then just animating the camera, unless they added something in the latest version that I don't know of. So um, so mostly, like I was saying, you will jump in here, you will create your concept, you will iterate, you'll find the character looks amazing, but the character is in the millions of polygons. So you will not be able to use this in another software unless you go to the next stage, which is making sure that whatever you did in ZBrush that looks really nice. Now you say, well, okay, it looks really nice. Now I want you to make it look really nice but useful in terms of, I mean, I'll say that whatever you do here is not useful. It's useful for review, for concept, for development. But when it comes to actually bringing it into, let's say, Maya, or let's say Unreal Engine or Unity, there are some technicalities you need to follow in order to make sure that that is something you can use it in. And one of the key aspects of this is that obviously you're talking in the millions of polygons. Okay, something that looks good. For example, that character there, it looks nice. And actually, before you continue, this character I saw on another page. It looks really nice, but I think the eyes are wrong. The eyes they don't look right, and the eyes are because I think they didn't follow the proper shapes. The eyes. Anyway, that's me being pedantic, I suppose. Um, the what I was saying is that it looks. I completely forgot what I was saying, man. Shit. You will make it look good. Going back to that, you will make it look good there. But obviously, is, for example, character you just saw. This character has a 6, 7, 8 million. Probably this will be 50 million polygon. It looks nice, but you will not be able to use it in any other software, because as long as you bring something like that in Maya, it will crash, because Maya cannot handle this amount of polygon, because it's not designed for that. Now, like I said, ZBrush got this amazing sort of algorithm that you can have 50, 20, 30 million there, and the software moves really nicely. By the way, everybody's listening, or I'm just talking my butt off here and nobody's listening, or everybody hearing what I'm saying, please?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I'm here.
Yeah? Everybody okay? Yeah, okay. Somebody's sleeping already. You might be sleeping already. It's fine. It's quite cold anyway. So anyway, so you see, these models like this, they are in the millions of polygon, but they are not useful in technically speaking. Because, like I said, this one looks nice, but when you put it into Unreal Engine or Unity, it will probably crash. It will say it's too many polygons to draw. So now there are some techniques, some technicalities that you need to go across and do in order for you to actually make this character useful. So pretty much you see something like this in ZBrush, oh amazing, it looks nice. But if you see something like that in Unreal, for example, you will see that there is always a little bit a lower quality, not because of the artist can't prove, it's because of technicalities. You cannot just go and say, I got 20 meters polygon and I just want to run it in my graphic card in real time and everything's going to be okay. Perhaps one day that will happen when, I don't know, 30, 40 years when the graphic card gets that powerful. But at the moment, there are some technicalities that you need to follow. And one of them is the poly count, the polygon count. You can make it look nice here, but not necessarily you can make it useful in another software. So for that, then you need to actually follow some technical steps. And for that, that's something you're going to be learning for the next 3 years. Okay? So, going back to ZBrush here. So, ZBrush, just to give you another update here, ZBrush was a software that initially was done for actually sketching or doing 2D concept art, and they follow something a methodology called 2.5D. Okay, something they call the canvas. So this here that you can see here, all this is called the canvas. At the moment, if I click here and drag, nothing happens because I am not in 3D. I am in a 2.5D canvas. Okay, so I'm just gonna undo this. Okay, so at the moment I cannot do anything in terms of 3D here because I'm in 2.5D. And by 2.5D, I means I got 2D, like, you know, X and Y, or X and Y, this. And I have an extra element, which is the 0.5, which is the depth. So when you do something in 2.5D in ZBrush, you're actually painting or you're doing something in X and Y and in depth. Okay? And if I put, let me show you here, don't worry about this, I'm gonna put something here in the alpha. So if I click here, I get this. So the good thing, like I told you at the beginning, guys, to have a tablet, if I touch this very lightly, this is a tablet that I have at the moment, one Korean tablet. So if I touch it very, very gently, I get this. But if I touch it really hard, then I get this. Okay? So you can see, if you're trying to sort of work out what you see in the viewport, you can see that the dots on the left, they are like quite light and they don't have that sort of shading look that make it look like it has depth. And this one here, you can start seeing, you got like a little highlight, you got a shadow on the bottom with being there. This sort of ideal lighting or spotlight on the top make it look like it's actually 3D. So if I keep, you know, going with this more and more and more, I will start building more, and then I can just do this, and then I can just build up. Okay, and at the moment I'm painting material, and I'm painting using this alpha, and I'm using this stroke, and I'm using this brush, which is a standard brush for just doing stuff in 2D. But that's just the default as it comes. So now this stuff that I'm doing here is pretty much, up to this day now, is pretty much old school. They don't use it anymore. Still useful, you can do projection and things like that, but it's very rarely now when you use that. Now, when you use this, it's just for you to just demonstrating that you actually have something called a 2.5D canvas that you can actually sketch things out here. You can do stuff here. They used to be done like this, but nobody uses this anymore. Everybody uses stuff in 3D. So you can see I can paint this, and I'm painting depth. So if I keep going, I will be doing more and more depth. Okay, and I can take this stuff here and actually, and what about this? We'll explain this as we go along. The alphas, just like the alphas in Photoshop, a black and white image to paint, just like the Photoshop brushes. If I click here and I tell them to grab document, look at this. I have now an alpha there that resembles whatever I have in the viewport. So you can see that those white dots, because I push harder than them, they are closer to the camera, which means they have more depth. Which means that if I use this alpha for doing some sculpting, I will be able to pass this information like that into the actual sculpt that I'm doing. So, which means that a good example would be you can actually create here in the viewport, you can create like a sort of brick pattern. You tell them to screen grab, and then you can actually create a screen grab, and then you will have the actual sculpt. You can use that for sculpting or for creating a pattern or creating a tileable texture. There are many ways of doing stuff in ZBrush. So because ZBrush as well is so extensive, what I've done is I use what I know, and what I know it works for me. And if something I come across something that I don't know, I just Google it and then trying to find out. But I know the tools and how it works. And I think that's probably what I advise you guys to do. Just learn what you need at the moment, and then make sure you understand how the software works, and then you start gathering as you go along. Because it's so much information, you're gonna get overwhelmed. So again, at the moment I'm doing nothing in 3D. This is 2.5D. So this is old school. Okay, once you restart ZBrush, okay, this is what you're gonna have, just the 2.5D canvas. Okay, now the 2.5D canvas, you will turn something into 3D. Now, if I going back to Maya here quickly, you can see here that I have this, okay, which is the okay. So I have this, and this is the is everybody seeing this? I'm not sure. See this? Okay. Give me 1 second because I got 3 screens. I get confused which one to click. So this is if I see this. So in Maya, when you click these buttons in the poly modeling, these are called primitives. Okay, well I call them primitive. Perhaps not. They're just models and stuff like. They're just pre-made, prefab sort of models or implicit or intrinsic geometry that you can actually click here and drag. Okay, you drag this here, and then they have this import. This methodology is called the DAG, or the dependency graph, which is something that comes with Maya, and is very old. It's probably 30 years old. That sort of framework, and it still works. Still the way the same frameworks that Maya works at the moment. And then obviously there are new contenders, new software out there that are actually challenging this methodology, and some of them are like Blender. Like right now, Blender has gone an amazing update recently. It looks amazing, and I think probably that's the guy who's gonna take the throne of Maya once established properly, because it's an amazing piece of work. Anyway, so you will have this, and then you will have several. You can create, all this, and these are shapes. They are basic shapes, and I gave you for you to start working, and they are mathematical in nature. And by mathematical in nature, I mean that they have some sort of formula attached to them, and that formula allows you to change some aspects of the way it looks before you actually commit it to do something with it. Because at the moment, this here, okay, it's a sphere, and it has a sphere shape, which is, this is the transfer node, the node that allows you to move things around from one side to another, but as well goes something called the shape. If you go into the attribute editor, the shape pretty much is the node that allows you to, I don't know why that happens all the time, to move it and refresh it. I don't know why this happened. Let me move it to the other screen and then move it back to this, and it sort of works. Yeah, it sort of freezes this or somehow. I don't know why it is. Anyway, so at least I found the bug. So anyway, so here you have this guy, and then this guy has the shape. The shape is pretty much a node that tells you what this guy looks like in the viewport, and this is this transfer that allows you to tell, hey, move stuff around from left to right, whatever. So when you are here, you got an extra node, which is the input or the creation node. This node is the node that allows you to come here and then change this. You see, this is mathematical. This is built in. Okay, so you can change the radius. Okay, it's too much. So you can change the radius stuff, and then that's it. You can start. Say, okay, I'm gonna start working with a sphere because I want to do something that looks like a sphere. I don't know, balloon or whatever. Okay, and then when you say, well, I'm happy with this, then you go here into edit, delete by type, and then you hit the button, and look what happened with the node here. I'm gonna do that. Edit, delete by type, history. You see that node is gone, which means that I can no longer change this. The initial mathematical sort of formula that was attached to this primitive is gone. So now Maya doesn't understand what this guy is. It's just polygons. This is just a bunch of points floating in the air with X, Y, and Z positions attached to them, and it doesn't matter. They don't know what it is. If you move the guy, for example, here, and you select the points, now the points should have some sort of translation. No, it doesn't, because it hasn't done the freeze transformation. But anyway, so now this guy is just a container that has all those points, and you move it around. Now Maya cannot go, hey, give me more rows, give me less rows, give me that. It doesn't understand. So you say, is the stream just loading for anyone else? Okay, so I don't know, can you just stop it and then just stop this and then restart again? But don't worry, I'm recording this, so it will be available, guys. So I will upload it there. So hopefully if everything went okay and I recorded this, at the moment it's recording. Yeah, I'm recording 19 minutes so far, and I'm tired already. Jesus. So my throat. I mean, none of you guys. I will never be tired here. Okay. So okay, keep doing this. Okay, let me go back in here. So what happened is, as soon as you take this guy, you see it has some. Because I deleted everything. I should have said edit, delete by type. I put delete all by type, and then I delete everything. Anyway, so you know now that this guy has lost the ability to change the. Let me go back a little bit. Okay, so here this guy has his own input as well. You can change this, you can do that, you can do this, whatever, and then you can just add more rows if you want. So you have the ability to do that, and that is a construction history. It's called the construction history in Maya. So Now the same principle works inside ZBrush. Okay. Now in ZBrush you have the ability to create a primitive as well. So if you click here, okay, you can see here they have this quick menu, and this menu is the tool menu. So you have at the top the quick pick, which is the latest tool you've been working on. I mean, then you have the 3D meshes, which actually you can see if you look at the icon, it resembles the icon that I just shown you inside Maya. So it's pretty much the same. I mean, some of those tools are more advanced. We're not going to cover them. For example, the 2.5D brushes, I never cover them because I just don't use them. And they are mostly designed for doing stuff in 2D, like I shown you earlier. Okay, you can just do fiber brush, I don't know, all this stuff. I never use this, so I'm not gonna go through that and say, yeah, you should do this and you need this. No, I never use it. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I only do 3D meshes or a project where I bring something from Maya and I start working. But for now, let's go with the 3D meshes because we actually wanna do stuff in 3D, so you need to know that. Okay, so we're gonna go through the method of talking about 2.5D versus 3D. So now we have 2.5D. You know that 2.5D for you guys is pretty much useless at the moment. But don't discard it because you might need to sort of hack it a little bit for something in the future you need. But for now, I'm just gonna go into 3D. So I'll click here, okay, and I click and drag, and look what happened. Okay, something in 3D happened, and you're like, okay, I got something in 3D. So I go in Maya. When you go something, going back to Maya again. So if you go back into Maya, you know that as long as you have something in 3D Maya, then you can just do this. Okay, I gotta start moving around. And I can just take this guy or this, and I just move it to one place and another, and I can start manipulating the points. I can do all crazy stuff. Okay. Now in ZBrush doesn't work that way. Because ZBrush, the starting point is 2.5D. Okay. So 2.5D. Okay, we did something. That's cool. But I'm gonna click here because when you're in 3D in ZBrush, you click in the viewport and drag, you will rotate automatically. But here you do that. This is what happens. Nothing happened. It draws another one. You're like, well, let's try this side then. Oh my god, another one. And you keep going and you can be there forever. Okay? Okay? And again, if you have this in the viewport, going back to what I showed you earlier, if I click here, alpha document, I said grab document, you can see, look at that. I grabbed the document and I created an alpha, a black and white image that tells me, hey, whatever is towards the gray is far away, whatever is towards the white, you get closer to the screen. So I'm painting that, which means that I'm still in 2.5D. So how do I go from 2.5D to 3D? Well, it's very simple. Okay. So, but this is very cumbersome here because it's too dirty the viewport. Okay. So now there is one of the first shortcut that I'm going to introduce, which is Control N. Control N, clear canvas. So I already got it in my keyboard here in one of the keys of my Huion tablet. I got one key for that, and that is the already assigned Control N. So I do that, and it clears that. So you press Control N, it clears that. And again, but we're in the same issue. Look, we still haven't got that. So again, Control N, and I clear that. So if you want to move to 2.5D to 3D, you have to do this. You have to draw it once, okay? Then you hit this button here, the edit button, and the shortcut for that is T. I should have used the shortcut, but it's easy just to, the amount of time you're gonna spend just clicking T on the keyboard or assigning a letter to it. On the Huion tablet, if you have, or even the passive one, it's easy just to go click and do this. Now look what happened. Now this stuff comes up, this thing tells you, hey, you're in 3D. Now when you click in the viewport, now you can see that this stuff is spinning around. Sort of, you can work it out because of the viewports or the polygon scheme. Now, if you want to see this a bit clearer, you just click this button here, and this is pretty much the equivalent of going into Maya, okay, and then selecting this button here. You can see you're showing the geometry. Okay, you're pretty much showing the actual lines. Okay, because that's the equivalent of that, and that is just clicking this button. Okay. Now it doesn't look very clear because in here you have a material, just like in Maya. Every time you create something in Maya, it has, if you go here into the attribute editor, it has something attached to it, and by default it's called the Lambert one. The Lambert one is a material that mimics things like clay, And you can tweak it. You can see, you can tweak it here. You can change the color. You can change the transparency if you want. You can see through, but you don't want that. Then you can just go here and then put any color you want. But there's always an advice, guys, never touch the Lambert, the one that comes with this. You can assign one later. But don't worry, you will learn this as you go along. But this go on material by default, and then ZBrush has the same principle. It has a material by default, which I hate, by the way. It's called the Madcap Red Wax. It's horrible material. So you click here, you got this nice array of materials. So I advise you guys just have a look and then play around with it. This is just how it's gonna look in the viewport. Okay. Now, depending on the material you choose and depending on what you're doing, the material will normally help you to see problems in your sculpt in the future. You start picking up like the subtle sort of crevices and cavities and things like that. So if you're looking for a clean sculpt, some of this material might help you spot those issues. So, but for now, I'm just gonna click on this one, which is just you go here, you got the skin materials, you got the Madcap Gray. I'm just gonna go for this Madcap Gray. You can see now that I have that material in there. Don't worry for that for now. It's only a material. And again, you click here, you don't have the lines, and then click here, you have the line. Now, the shortcut for that is Shift F. Again, I'm not gonna invest time trying to assign a shortcut for that. Some people in the future, guys, if you want, as an advice, go online on YouTube and check out how to change the UI in ZBrush. Make a note of that. That's what the class for. And then have a look at that because there are tons of tutorials how to do that. I am bad at that. I don't do it because I don't use ZBrush on a daily basis. I use another software like I told you, Houdini and all that. Those I have my own tool set already in place because I use them all the time. But you can actually change the UI however you want. You can put some of this stuff in here, some of these menu items. You can put them in the actual UI because they're easy to access them. So that will make you more efficient and the turnaround work would be good, would be better. You would work faster, okay? But that would be just personal preferences, okay? So we have this, we have the material. Again, we can change it to any of this. There's some really nice material. Like this one looks like great. I don't like that much either. But you got this one like the metal. If you're doing stuff like metallic with it, you can see things and then just have a look and see what actually is happening in terms of like the edges or whatever. So again, if you go back, I'm trying to use Maya, guys, because the majority of you have used Maya, so it's always good to have some sort of resemblance to go to. Now, if you have a look at this material here, this model. This model will tell you with this heads-up display. By the way, this is not on by default, guys. What you have to do in order to showcase that, you have to go into display, heads-up display, and then tick the one that says polycount. Okay, so I leave it there. Polycount. When you do that, when you tick this, then you will have here this statistic sort of pop-up menu or pop-up information that tells you whatever you have selected, how many vertices, edges, and faces you have available. So the moment you have, this thing has 1,209 faces. This is the total for the whole scene, and this is what you have selected. Okay, and it has 2,387 edges and vertices, all those boring numbers. You don't care about that, but that is the stuff that if you click on one of these guys, you can see that tells you, hey, this guy is this is the one that I selected, my bad. So if I take the edge, you say, hey, you have 78 vertices selected. If you go into face, you say, hey, you have 128 faces selected, and so forth. And if you go into edges, the same. You go 108 faces selected, or sorry, edges. So in here you have something similar. Okay, go back to ZBrush, and here if you write in this the right hand corner here, you can tell it, hey, the active point or the one you have selected is well selected because that's the tool at the moment. I'm gonna go through another concept, which is the subtools. Okay, but probably I think there's something they're gonna cover this. Yeah, this we can. They are in the videos anyway, so let's go with it. Let's see how much my voice can take today. So this stuff here, you have the geometry, and it's like, hey, this thing is 8,320 points. Okay, now this one counts a little bit different points, but I think it's roughly the same, works out in triangles and polygons. But don't worry about this, because the beauty of this software is you can go into the millions. I mean, you can go into 20, 30, 40 million polygons, no problem. Okay, obviously there's a point that you're gonna run out of memory. Okay, but at the moment I got good memory because I upgraded my computer. I put just now 64 gigs of RAM. So I had 32 before, now I have 64, so I can go pretty high now. But there's always going to be a count as well. I think you can change that in the preferences. You can tell them the max point, the max. There's somewhere here. We can go through another time with that. So I think it's in memory. You can tell them what's the maximum poly mesh. 100 million. This is in the million. 100 million. You see, this style allowed me to have 100 million polygons in the viewport per subtool. Try to do that in Maya, man. Your computer will probably start smoke coming out from if it does something. So don't try, by the way. I don't want you to burn your computer. No, it's not going to burn it. So anyway, so you have this, okay. So I hope nobody's sleeping because this is quite important. This is all the foundation. So okay, so we have this. Okay, this is the geometry now. Okay, so we took you say okay, Lou, you talk about millions of polygons, but I only have 8,820 polygons. That's fine. I mean, you can, if you went back again to Maya. So we're going back to Maya, and in Maya you say, okay, I got this dude here, and this dude has, I don't know, has 1,209 faces. If I want to create more faces with it, then I have to subdivide it. And this button here for that. So I subdivide it, and I have now 4,000. Okay, I can change the level of subdivision to 3 perhaps, and now I have 76,000. You know, and then yes, it looks nice. You know, it's getting smoother and smoother. So if I hide this, you can see that this stuff is getting smoother and smoother because you cannot see the subdivision. If I put back to 0, you can start seeing that, not much, but you can start seeing perhaps a little bit of these edges. And obviously, those of you who play games, which I believe everybody, you can start seeing that always when you play a game, you start seeing this edge thing here, because obviously you cannot put millions of polygons in the game because it will crash. So I say, okay, that's how you add geometry in there, but here is different. But we're gonna go through that in a minute. But for now, I want you to know that at the moment, I have this primitive in the viewport, okay? And then if you compare this to Maya, you know that in Maya, if you put a sphere and you hit delete history, then Maya doesn't understand there's anything mathematical about it. It's only understand that it's just points floating in the air, and you're just shaping however you want. The same principles here. When you add a primitive, which we did, 3D meshes, I call them primitive, so bear with me. Primitive, I mean geometry that is pure as the beginning. So if you take this, if you click this button, initialize, you can actually change it. You can say this stuff here is pretty much what you have in that node when you create something in Maya. You can say, okay, I want this sphere, but I want to start with the size is too big in X, so I can just reduce it. I can reduce it in Y. I can reduce it in Z. I can change the subdivisions. This is not enough. I want to put less. I can click, you see, I can go really low. I can go really low there. And I have that. I say, well, I'm going to start with that. Now, obviously, that is very, very low res. But you say, okay, I'm going to start modeling this because I'm going to start modeling. I'm in 3D. So look what happens when I'm in 3D. You know that you're in edit mode. You click here. You see you got all these brushes. Guys, don't be scared about those brushes. I know there are tons of them. But you only use about 5 or 6. You can produce an amazing sculpt with 5 or 6 brushes. All these brushes are specialized brushes, are variation on the same brush, and some that have been tweaked to do a specific thing. And there are even more brushes in the Lightbox, but we're not going to go through those. Those are experimental ones. So here, so what happened with this? So, okay, I got the geometry. The moment I got geometry, that is, you see how it changed? Because we changed this, you see now I only have 160 polygons. Okay, so the brush here, somebody said that the idea of having brushes in 3D work. Yeah, that's right, it's been saying, I agree, but bear with us. It's just completely different. But the thing, everything here is treated as a brush. A brush here is something that you can do. For example, I can take a brush and then I can move. You see, I can go this move brush. I can move points if I want to. You see? In Maya, you can do the same. You know, you can just go into Maya. Going back to Maya. But Maya, it doesn't use brushes. It's just use that you have to actually select them. Go here. You select this and you select one edge. Press B for soft modification. We don't worry about that. And you can actually, select and then move things around. See? You can do that. Okay, the same here, but here you need a brush in order to do that. But there in Maya, it's just a manipulator, a gizmo. They call it gizmos or manipulators, or I don't know, gnomons, I don't know, whatever they call it. Many, all the software call it differently, but it's the same stuff. So again, so I think, okay, Louis, I'm gonna do what I just did in Maya. I'm gonna click here and I'm gonna move this dude around. Okay, so what happens if I do that? Give me an error. So what this error is telling me? It says, to enable sculpting, please convert this 3D primitive to a polymesh 3D by pressing the Make Polymesh 3D button in the tool palette. Man, it tells you exactly what to do, you know. Just don't do the thing that, you know, when the printer comes out and it doesn't work, you say, oh, well, it's not working. But the printer is telling you that actually, you know, on paper. So just always read this tooltip because it will give you, you know, an idea of what's happening. Another thing as well for you guys to learn, for every time you hover over any of these things, if you hover over that and you press Control, this pop up by holding Control and hovering over a specific tool, anything. So I'm gonna hover, I'm gonna leave the pointer here, and if I press Control and hold, it tells me, hey, this tool does this. So you press Control and hold, and then you know you can learn a lot from that. And the same when you go into here and anything, divide, press Control and hold, and tell you, hey, this button does this, 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 that, and that's something that we're gonna do in a minute. How to divide the geometry. Okay. So, but again, if I do this, it's like, hey, man, I cannot do this because you need to treat me as something abstract, as a piece of geometry that has no mathematical connection to it. And by mathematical connection, I mean that you have the ability to change it with this tool. You can say, well, I like it like that, like that. You see, still the connection is there. And I'm going to put a little bit more divisions here and there. And now I'm going back to roughly the way it was before. So you can see that even now, I can click again to give me the error because at the moment it's like being in Maya and I haven't hit delete history. I still got that connection, but obviously it's not as forgiving as Maya. This stuff here is more strict. So no, you actually have to turn it into geometry if you want to do something with it. Okay, fine. So it tells you go into the tool palette and press the button and say Polymesh 3D, and that's the button here. Okay, you can see here button. Now if you hover here, you press Control and hold, it tells you, hey, this button does this. You know? So, again, the tooltip told me to go and click here. I click there, something happened. This stuff changed color. Okay? And that's another indicator that if you start seeing color, then it means that you're actually in 3D, like this. Color only comes when you click on the polyframe. And this is something, a concept that we're going to cover, which is called polygroups. And polygroups is another word for just grouping pieces of geometry with a little color and then for you to be able to pick them up easily in the viewport. But now, let's try to do what I just did in Maya, which was moving those points around. So I'm going to go here, there is a brush for that. I'm going to click on this move brush, okay? And if I click here, okay, you can see that the brush has these little red dots there, that red sort of disc. And those red discs are the brush size, okay? And then the red that is in the middle that is sort of grayed out is called the focal shift, okay? And I'm going to explain that as we go along. And I think I already explained in some of the tutorials. But that stuff there is the radius of influence, okay? And then going back to Maya, so if I go back to Maya, you can see that if I'm in here, and if I press one vertex, and I click select it, like that, ignore this for now, and if I move it, I do this. I'm only moving one point, okay? And if I select a bunch, I'm only moving a bunch of them, okay? So the bigger the selection, the more points I'm going to be able to move, okay? But this transition is too harsh. And in Maya has something as well similar called the soft modification tool. If you press B and hold and click and drag, you get this stamp, okay? And this stamp tells you in a heat map, the stuff that are towards the yellow are going to be more influenced, and stuff that are towards the red and nothing, it will be sort of like a gradation of how it's going to be moving. So if I take this, you can see that this transition is softer, okay? So I move this and I click select this, and I can make some really nice soft modification to this geometry, okay? But obviously, because this is Maya, nobody does this, and there's a point you have to add more geometry, blah blah blah. It gets more complicated, blah, blah, and then you don't want that. Anyway, so we can do something like that, and then here obviously is different methods. The brush is already built in, and the brush influence is controlled by the draw size, or that red disc outside, yeah. And that red disc outside is telling me, hey, if I try to move with this brush, a little bit of geometry here, this is how much I can do, whatever that this tell me. And let's try. If I do this, click and drag, look what happened. I did that. You can see, look at the circle when I move it. You can see that is pretty much what is influence. Okay. If I want to have more influence, I want to undo that. Control Z, just a standard software to undo. So if you are been playing around with Photoshop, you know that if you want to increase or decrease the size of the brush, you have to click on the square brackets. So square brackets, left and right in the keyboard, allows you to increase the brush size, or the one on the left decrease it, and the one on the right increase it. Okay. Now the modern tablets these days have this little wheel built in on the side. My tablet has it. So what I've done is I built in those keyboards. So when I go up, I can move up easily and can go down. But you can do it in the keyboard. And in your tablet, you can just find a way to set up those two keys in that sort of touch wheel. And again, if I increase this and I want to move this, you can see now that I have a softer sort of transition, similar to what I just did in Maya. Okay, you can see, yes. Now, but you can see that there's always going to be this transition from everything to nothing, because that is going to be the brush size. Okay, and the good thing about this brush is that if you go here, you see how the brush conform to the shape of the geometry. Look, this is kick-ass. You know, look at that. So I think that is by default. You can actually change this setting in the settings somewhere here, but I can't remember what it is because I never change it, because I think it's very convenient. And then here I can just undo this by pressing Control Z. Another keyboard that I'm going to show you now, the same in Maya, you press F and you frame. Pressing F in the keyboard, you frame your model in the viewport. Okay. So, what's the next? I'm going to show you. Okay. Right. Okay. So, is everybody following this? Am I going too fast? Is something you want me to repeat? Please speak, guys, or my throat is gonna burn. Anybody got any question? You can use the microphone. It will be good to. All grooving. Cool. Does that means everything is okay? Because I'm getting old. I don't know those things. Holly, do you want to add something?
No, fine with you. Cracking
Yeah?
on. Yeah.
Okay, everybody's good. So, okay. Again, in the UI, all that intimidated, but don't worry about it. It's cool. So don't worry if I'm moving things around, and I'm going to show you how to zoom things in and out here. But for now, I'm just going to put it there. Now, okay, so we are in the concept that we are in 3D, and we are moving stuff around because we got this brush. Okay. Now, so you know now that we have 2.5D. Now we move to 3D. But you can see that if you start pushing this guy around too much, you see it start squishing the geometry and start messing up the geometry, because we only have 4,922 points. So there is so much we can do with that, you know. So we're gonna go through that in a minute and say how can we subdivide and then do things like that. But I just don't want to put too much, because I already, like I said, I already recorded all this stuff. So have a look at that and then go through that again. But again, if you want to go back, you just press Control Z, go back. And then the other thing as well, I'm going to tell you, this little bar that you can see here. You can see this little bar, that is the undo history. Okay, you can actually press Control Z, or you can just go here and then click one button at a time, and you can see how you can go back in time. You know, and if I go here and go back to the way it was at the beginning when I start touching it, as soon as I do something else, it tells me, hey, whatever you had before, man, I'm going to lose it, because you pretty much, I'm gonna have to redraw this bar again for you. So the current active undo history is not the latest one. Storing this action on the undo history will remove 25 undos. Okay? You say, sure, yeah. I have done nothing. You see how the bars get bigger? So the more you do, you start getting smaller, because it means you go more undos in there. That's another tip there for you guys. Okay, you can do it through here with the button. You can press Control Z. There are many ways. Okay, a couple of ways to do that. Okay. So again, at the moment I have this geometry. Okay, there's not much you can do with it, obviously, because I only have 4,922 points. So it's very limited what I can do. Okay, but before I tell you a little bit more about the actual how it works, um, I'm going to talk to you why is the file format? Okay, because again, let's go back to Maya. In Maya, the stuff here is called scenes. Okay, you know that when you take this guy, you don't have to select anything. You just click in the viewport, you go into File, you say Save a Scene As, and you can go here. Let me move this over to the screen. And you can tell in here, hey, I'm gonna save this, and you have two file types, which is Maya ASCII and Maya binary. Okay, everybody, guys, advice, use Maya ASCII, because binary, if you get corrupted, you might not be able to recover your work. And this one, I think there is an ability to recover your work. If you delete a few things here and there, you might be able to recover a piece of work. But my advice in general is save your work constantly, guys, because it can happen. These softwares are good and all that, they cost a lot of money, but it's inevitable that they're gonna crash at some point. And they always do, regardless. Obviously, when they crash too much, then obviously because they're buggy, but sometimes, for whatever circumstance that you have, the way you have software installed on your computer, your hardware, whatever, or something failing, it could crash. Some back sector in the hard drive, I don't know, whatever, it could crash. So keep saving your work constantly, guys. Okay? So now here you go a file, and then when you go here, you open the file, and then you just open a Maya file, a Maya ASCII file, and then you just open the scene, and then voila, you're good to work. Okay? And you can continue. So whatever you have here is always being put in the outliner. You have three pieces in here, and that's it. You got cameras, you got animation, you got all the stuff in there. And that's a scene. Now in ZBrush, it's the same principle, but, and that's something that it was quite, at the beginning I couldn't get my head around, because when I was learning, I started learning ZBrush in version 3, ZBrush 3.5 or 3, I can't remember. That was 2009, 10. They were saying, okay, now that you have this, save your tool. And I said, a tool? How am I saving? Why would I need a tool? In my head, a tool was like, I don't know, in Maya, the insert mesh tool, or the insert edges, or the combine tool. I said, why would I want to save a tool? I couldn't get my head around it. Probably was a bit, I don't know, what was going in my brain, but for me, I couldn't work it out. So anyway, saving your tool is another fancy word of saving your scene, pretty much. That's not what it is. They call this guy, because these guys are special, they say, well, we're not going to call my stuff a scene, I'm going to call it set tool. And then that's it. A set tool is whatever you have here in the viewport, it will be saved as a file format called .set tool. Okay, so if you want to save this guy, save it. You hit this button, save as. This pops up. I'm going to put in the desktop here. And then you can see is a set tool .ztl. Okay, and you name it, you put it there, and I'm gonna save it, the desktop, and that's it. It's saved. Okay. When I initialize ZBrush, let me do that. When I initialize it, and I say, okay, I'm gonna start working. I'm gonna load my tool. Then you say, I'm gonna load tool, and that tool is not an actual tool that you use here. Is an actual. Wait, where did it go? Oh, tell me your brush. Classic. It crashed, guys. Again, like I told you, save, but I didn't save. So it's coming right up. It's nearly to an hour now. I'm loading up ZBrush again. Crash. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm recording. Maybe that's what it was. Let me move it to the other screen here. Yep. Does everybody see this? Okay. So I'm gonna go here. Load tool. Oh man, don't crash again. Some reason doesn't let me load a tool, man. Yeah, there's something wrong here. Yeah, it says. Let me give you a second. It says. Right. Well, we wait for that. Any question, guys? I don't know why is that happening. It shouldn't be a problem with it. I think it's because I'm recording. I got 3 screens here. I'm probably taking too much, taxing too much the system, I think, in terms of graphic power. Anyway, so I'm gonna close this and then reopen it again. Don't know why that happened, so that's good. You see, that's good that I worked that out. I'm gonna make a note of that and see what's the issue with that. Probably could be graphic driver I need to update, or when I do this, I might have to disconnect one of my screens and then only work with 2 screens, perhaps, because I got 3. I got my laptop and then I got another 32-inch screen and I got my Huion tablet. So those other 2 are running in 4K, so I suppose that's probably too much. Anyway, so you click this button without touching it from me for now. Then you load up that and then you load the tool. And then what you do is you load, and the problem is you have to draw it and then hit the button edit again. That's the only thing you have to do. And I think in the other one when I recorded, I did that with no problem. So I think now because I'm using Discord and I'm streaming, then probably that the resources are taken, I suppose. But anyway, so that is one way. So I'm gonna go here and then I'm just gonna quickly create something. I'm just gonna draw it, hit edit, change the material, then I'm gonna make polymesh 3D. So now it's there. And by the way, when I told you earlier about this, once you hit the polymesh 3D, look what happened to initialize. You see the initialize you had before, it's gone. You cannot change the high side. This is something else that we're gonna cover later on. This is something used for the set modeler. That's something we're gonna cover in later weeks. But now you can see that I cannot do changes like let me undo this. No, I cannot do it anymore because it's just not a scratch. Okay, so you can see that I cannot do anything like I used to because there's no mathematical sort of equation attached to it. I can change height, width, and all that. So it's pretty much at the moment it's just polygons floating in the air, floating in the viewport, and you just want to work with them. Okay. Okay. So that's it. So so we're back to this. So this is one way of saving. You save your file. You say save this, and then you load it, and then you draw it. You click and drag, draw, and you hit edit, and then you can continue work. You can select your brushes. You can do all this stuff, change the material, whatever. So once you have this, there is another way of saving, and this is quite critical, guys, because a lot of people we have issues in the pile. People don't because there's so many ways of saving things here. So you go. This is the one that I advise to save your tool because the other one is saving your project. Now the problem with your project is that you could have many things in here. You can see I can go and click here, and then you can see I switched to another subtool. And I can go here and I go to this one, and I can go here and I can go to the one that actually had the one before I hit the make polymesh 3D. You see, that will give me an error. You see, that's the old one. This is the one that I turn into a mesh polymesh 3D. So when I do it, I can still do stuff. Okay, so I can go back to this if I want to, and this one as well hasn't got any polymesh 3D. So when I click here, it gives me the error, so I have to do that. So I'm gonna go back to the one that's already been sorted, which is this one. Okay, so the other way of saving this is by saving here material. No, what is it? In file. I mean, this is quite interesting because again, ZBrush trying to be different. In another program, you will automatically, instinctively this day, you will go to file and then save scene or save model or save whatever they want to call it. But you go there. But now here, instinctively, the way I do is I always tell people, just save this because this is only gonna save your active tool. If you got 50 things you're working on, if you save this, you only save the one that is active, which is this one. With the project here, save. I don't want to touch it with my break. I don't know. When you save this here, let me see. If it doesn't, did it go? I don't know if it go into the other screen. Why did I touch it? I said myself, don't touch it. Yeah, well, I already said that. Let me open again. I was like, don't touch it, and I did it. Okay, let me go again. I don't know why is that happening, but I'll fix it, guys. So we just got just under an hour. I'm gonna go here, go in there, again, this again. When you are, I'm just gonna quickly do this. edit, change this horrible, painful material to look at, make polymesh 3D, and we're back to that. Okay, so now when I do that, I can do things. Okay. Okay, so we got this, and then you go here in File, without touching it for me for now. I can save there, and I can open stuff from there. When the thing with File Project is that you save everything in here. It will save all the stuff that you have here open. You have several projects open. It will save them in there. It will save all your undos per subtool. It will save whatever texture you have loaded up. It will save some of the stuff, materials and things and settings. Now these files can get really, really big because you have to save everything. Now my advice is not to use that unless you want to do one once in a while, one per day, but always keep one of these here, because the good thing about that is that it doesn't, the project doesn't combine everything in one file. It combines the connection, but when you hit save, it will save everything, but it will save as well individually the subtools in disk. But my advice is to keep things clear, just use this one. You could use this, okay, for your own work if you want it, but don't rely too much on that. Just use that one as well, always externally, just in case. And the thing as well, obviously, we cannot do that now because we're submitting everything online. But in the past, I asked you to give me the subtool, and the amount of times I got this file, man, it's unbelievable. I kept saying, don't use this file because it will save everything. I just want this one because this one goes into the gig sometimes. This one just 300-400 meg. But now I don't want that because I only want the actual result, which is the turntable based on the brick that I told you last week. So again, there are two methods of saving. I advise this one. It's lighter, and this one works as well. But keep it for yourself. This one, don't give this to me. So I got this. Now there's another thing as well. Document as well. Go a save and open. This is just to get a screen grab of the viewport. This is different. Okay. There is. I think there are others. I can't remember. I think they're in. You can import, export alphas. You can save brushes as well. You can, the document I just told you. You can save renders, load renders. You can see there's save for every single one of the things, and the tool is the one that normally appears here. So yeah, so pretty much again, you want to save from here, and if you want to save from here, just give it for yourself, this project. But it works well. Okay. So any question, guys, so far? There must be a question, man. Come on. No, everybody's sleeping, I guess. Okay, so let's continue with this. So we now know save the philosophy in terms of 2.5D, 3D, that's fine. Now the primitive as well, we talk about the make polymesh 3D. So in order for you to do actually some tweakings in there, then you have to actually convert it into polygons that ZBrush understand just as polygon floatings in the air. Nothing that you can actually change the subdivision, the side, the width, the height, all that. You cannot change it because there's no connection in that, because you already convert it into just 3D, polymesh 3D. Okay. Now, talking about at the beginning when I said, well, this stuff you can use, you can have millions of polygons. Okay, yeah, fine, millions of polygons, but at the moment we don't have millions of polygons. We only have 482 for this polygon. Okay. Again, you can go through this thing. We're going to go along as we do things, but you can do things like, for example, you can change the perspective. You can put things like, for example, like in Maya, that would be, like what is called something called isometric cameras. For example, in Maya, this is a 3D camera perspective. I'll keep dragging the wrong one. So here you can see that there is perspective. You can see that the further you put things away from the camera, the closer to the camera, you get perspective as well. You see. If you go here, then you got these three cameras, which is the top, front, and side, and those are called isometric cameras. Okay, and those isometric camera means that they don't have distortion with perspective. Everything looks flat as it is. So those are called isometric representation or isometric rendering. So these here are 3D. The same here happens in ZBrush. In ZBrush by default, everything is isometric. You see, there is no depth. You see, everything looks flat. You see. And then you can see that there is no perspective here. This point here has the same sort of perspective distortion as this point that is close to the camera. You can see that there's no changes. Okay, you can see the same. But when you put the perspective, you can see that this point has perspective. Now this point here looks closer and this one looks further because it mimics the camera. You can change in ZBrush that by going into a menu in a minute. But here I'm going to show you the floor as well. You can click here, you can have like a little grid than the floor, okay? And in the grid here, you can have as well this gizmos, which is like representing the same aspect as Maya. But if you go back to Maya, you know that if you go here, you got this thing here that tells you that everything in you got the X going in this direction. You want to move in X this direction. You can move in Z towards, and you can move in Y up. Okay. The same happens in here. You got the same principle. You can move things around, but here is different. You cannot move things. You have to use a tool. You can move things around. We're gonna cover this later on. Don't worry about that. But the draw mode and the move mode, we're gonna cover that at some point. So, and I think that is for the week after. Yeah, the week after we're gonna cover that. And I've already recorded that, but we're gonna go through that. So again, you can see as soon as I get rid of the perspective, everything looks flat. Even the grid. Look at the grid. So there's some sort of perspective. This point has a distortion based on the perspective of the camera. By doing this, you have perspective. If you want to change how much this perspective is, you can just go into I think it's in draw, and you can change this. Here is different. You can uncheck this because this one is when you import a camera or FBX. If you uncheck that, you have an angle of view, which is focal length. You can see if you increase this, it will look very distorted because it's close. You see, it's like a GoPro camera, you know, like a mil or something. This is the field of view, which is inverse of the focal length. So here you can just, if you put this one, I think the guys Pixology recommend to put this about 30, which is sort of closer to what the sort of easier to work. Because I think there's another thing as well, where when you're using reference, when you're doing a character and you're using a reference for a person, you have to always bear in mind that you put something like that and you're using as a reference, you need to sort of work out what kind of focal length that person was taking on. Because if you take a camera with your selfie close to your face, you will see your face is huge and then the rest is quiet, because those cameras, the phone camera has like 8 millimeters focal length, so it's quite distorted. And if you go like a landscape, then the focal length, everything looks quite flat because you're looking about 25, 30, 40 mils. So based on that, if you put a character or a person you're trying to recreate, then if it's too close to the camera, then it will look very distorted. If you're trying to mimic that, you pretty much are mimicking something that is wrong, which is because it's being distorted by camera. So that's why normally they use about 30 or 50 mil sort of focal length for portrait, because that's where it looks a bit the flattest. It's more accurate to what the person proportions are. So that's another tip that in the future you want to look at that. So we got this, we got perspective, and we got floor if you want it, and the other stuff in here, but I never used any of these things. I normally use the shortcuts. But the next thing that I would like to talk to you about is about the subdivision of this. So at the moment I have 482 points, okay, and give you a coffee. 482. If I want to do something, let's pick up one of this brush randomly. There are tons of it. You've got clay builder. I'm gonna pick the classic one, which is move. I'm gonna increase with the square bracket the brush size. You can do that, or you can just do it from here, guys, as well. Another draw size. You can see how it increases. Okay, and that little red dot in the middle is the focal shift. And again, if you want to know about focal shift, you click here and then you press Control and tell you what it is. It pretty much is the transition. If you have transition in the red dot in the middle, red disc in the middle, this is how fast the transition go from the full effect of the brush to nothing in the edge or the other one, or the actual brighter red ring. The transition, how fast it is. If it's too fast, then you will see the transition very harsh. If it's soft, then you will start seeing the transition quite soft and it looks smoother. So if you change the focal shift of this, you can see the closer they are to the main ring, the harsher is going to be the transition, and the further away they are from the ring, the softer is going to be the transition from the full effect, which is the middle of the brush, to the actual effects outside, which is the end of the brush. So just put it at 0 for now. And again, I think I mentioned that a bit more in detail in the tutorial. If not, I can go through that some other point with you guys. And again, have a look online, YouTube. There are tons of tutorials out there. Okay, so we have this. Okay, now next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you is about the subdivision thing, because at the moment we are going to have this, okay, 482 polygons, and there's not much I can do. If I do this, you can see that I can move it, but there is not much I can do in terms of detail. So I'm gonna undo that. So if I want to have more detail, then you need to subdivide. Again, if you go back to Maya, if you want to have more detail for whatever you have, let's say, keep grabbing the wrong thing. You just select the sphere, which is somewhere, and if you click this button, you subdivide it, and you can see there's more detail in there. If I put 3, then I have plenty. I got 76,000. You can see that I have plenty of geometry here to work on. So when I select one face and I reuse this, then I have the ability to create more detail. Okay, the more polygons I have, the more control I have over the actual detail. So you can see I can create some little soft spikies in here like that because I have more detail now. Okay, if I don't have this, then this will look very coarse. Again, the same happens here. If I want to do something more detailed in here, then I can't because I have not enough polygons. Okay, so there are two ways of working with this. The classic one, which is actually creating the geometry, is doing this. You go here into subtools, into the tool section. You got a subtool here. We're gonna go through that menu a bit more in depth as we work along over the weeks. But this one here tells you, hey, you have one subtool in this tool. You can have several. This one here, this is the properties of this. This is visible, invisible. But here on geometry, there is one entry called the geometry. And this one, by clicking this button, you subdivide. You click the button once, look what happened with this bar here. Click here, look what happened. Now I have 1,886, which is 482 to the power of 2, give you this. So it's powers of 2. So now when I subdivide again, I got 8,000, 30,000, 126,000, 500,000, 2 million polygons. So now I have 2 million polygons in the viewport, and I can do this with no problem. If you have 2 million polygons in Maya, you cannot do this really. It will crash. So now, because I have 2 million polygons, I can be, I reduce the size of this. Let's see, stop working. Man, the brush size started working. I don't know why that happened. It just crashes. Let me, if I move it to, I think if I move it to this screen, and I move it back, for some reason it starts working. Let me see. Okay, anyways, it doesn't want to work now. I think it crashed. You see, this is what we do in this. Test this stuff. Okay, now where the menu going? You see the menus appear. Let me see if I can fix this. Close this again. So guys, next time I'm gonna try, like I said, I'm gonna try to just put 2 screens because I think that's my problem. I have too many screens on. We're gonna close this quickly here, finish this up, so you can do the rest of the work here, and then we're gonna go through whatever people have done some work. We're gonna review it now. So again, I'm gonna probably go easy with this because I don't have much resources. So I'll go this material, this. I'm just gonna set it by a couple of times. Okay. So now I have a little bit more. I have 8,000, so I can do it again. Yeah, I got issues guys with this recording. It just crashes. I have to use this one. So now I have a better. No, it's this brush move. Yeah. So I can move things. You see, now that I have more polygons, okay, I have more polygons, and I can just be more precise when I move. So the point is that guys, I don't want to overload you with work. I just want to say that now that you have more polygons, you have more detail. Okay. Now, as an example, you can see that I'm just gonna reinitialize this before I close this up. I'm going to show you, for example, one of my tools. See if it works. Does it work, load tool? Man, everything stopped working. Not even load tool. I cannot even load a tool now. Okay, for some reason that doesn't work. Anyway, let's see, it crashed again. Maybe because I got Maya open. Close Maya. No, I want to save Maya. Yeah, this one crash again. Just give me 1 second, guys. I'm trying to put everything back together. I'm not gonna load my tool. I think I deal with that in the project, in the actual recording. So, okay, so we're back to this. Now, again, you have more polygons, then you will be able to work more. Now, what I want you to do, guys, for you to start working on, because I did that in the tutorials anyway, and how to manipulate the viewport in terms of like how to move around, how to rotate, zoom in, zoom out, all that stuff is in there. I think it's in there. I think it's in that one. That's something that I normally cover in the first one, which is just subdivision. So it's 3 parts videos. Go through that, and then you will be able to get all the things that I didn't cover here, which I covered the majority, the most important here. So again, I recorded this class over 1 hour and 11 minutes now recording. So I'm gonna put it together, and then I'm gonna upload it into YouTube and put in a link into that, which I put like I'm gonna put I don't know, actual class recorder, whatever, so you can have it there. So we're testing there and see how it goes. So I think I cannot talk anymore. I talk too much now. So yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that's up to set. Yeah, I added more in part 3. There are a little bit more that I haven't covered here. So have a look at that because there's some interesting things in there. But guys, this is hands-on. You need to actually sit down and do it, guys. Don't rely just on the tutorial. Just do it, guys. By doing it, you will learn a lot. And then obviously bring questions when you come to the class. Bring questions and we'll clarify them here. That's our job here to do that, to make sure that you get all the best advice possible. Okay. So yes, exactly. You need to play with it. That's right. That's correct. Yeah. So just play with it. Just obviously start doing your characters and all that, and then that's it. That's it for today, guys. For me, Holly, do you want to add something?
So what I wanted to do today is 1 sec, I'm getting feedback. I can hear myself back. Louis, I can hear myself through your microphone.
Okay, so let me stop the recording. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording of this.